Hello again and welcome back to Britannia Motorcycles, where we're going to continue the build of the BM250 Trials bike. This week we're going to work on the swinging arm. Now if you're going to use one of the earlier models, you'll find that you don't need to do anything to the swinging arm because it's 15 inches from wheel spindle to pivot point. With these, the later one, it's actually 16¼ inches, so I always take 1¼ inches out. At one point I'll mention on this, the B25 swinging arm actually has a needle bearing inside here, both sides, and it's to me another point that Yamaha stole for the XT500. Now previously, when I've shortened these, what I've actually done is taken a piece out here, because it just so happens that if you move the wheel spindle to back here, it's 1¼ inches. While I was reworking my own bike this year, I wondered what would have happened if I'd taken the 1¼ inches out of here, so that I'd actually moved the relationship of the bottom suspension unit mount to the spindle and to the top mount. So what I did was I measured from, on a standard one, an unaltered one, from here to there, and then I moved this back by that amount from the new placement for the wheel spindle. And I think it made some improvements. So what I'm going to do this time is actually cut the 1¼ inches out of here. I've made a simple little jig that I'll show you to do that. Before we do that, we have a couple of things to cut off. There are two brackets on these swinging arms and a little tube here that is used for the chain guard mount. We're going to take that off because we're actually going to drill through here and put some tubes in to mount the chain guard. And also, we don't need this on this side. Unfortunately, we need one on this side, where this one is broken, for the brake torque arm, because we're going to use, I think, a Yamaha TY250 wheel, and the brake is on this side, sprocket on this side. So that's the first thing we'll do. We'll set to cut these things off, just to make it lay down a little easier when I take it to the chop saw, and then I'll show you the simple 2 pieces of angle iron jig that I made in order that we can cut this perfectly squarely and keep it all right while we weld it up. So let's get the cutter out. Here we are ready to start. Got your goggles on and of course flat hat. I always use goggles when I'm grinding rather than safety glasses, but I have to admit over the years I still get things in my eyes. It completely baffles me how it happens, but having once had an actual piece of metal shoot off one of these into an eye, I take great care now. Alright, so here we go, cutting disc in my grinder. One down, one to go. As I say, it's really annoying that this one was broken, because I would have left this one on. Anyway, here goes. There's the second one. Now this piece of tube, what we're just going to do is try and cut each side where it's welded, and then we might even just knock it off. there we are. And that will lay down pretty much flat. I might grind a little bit off them. So the next thing is we're going to put the jig on, so I'll show you that. So here's the little jig in place. Now it's a very simple jig because it's a very simple job we want to do. Basically, all we need from the jig is a guide, so that when we cut the two pieces apart, they're cut with parallel cuts, so they will come back up exactly the same. And we wanted to stop it twisting, and to help that I put a wheel spindle in. So what we're going to do is put it in the chop saw. Maybe I should explain what they are first. They're just two pieces of angle iron with U-bolts. This piece here, actually one end is slotted because, as you will see, because of the taper, when we cut this, if we just moved it straight up, these would be sticking out a little bit. So after we moved it, we just slide them in, then we put the two pieces together, and we'll put two bolts through. By bolting the angle iron together, we'll bring the pieces we've cut out right together, and it'll hold them for the welding. We're also going to put in a couple of little sleeves inside, about 3 inches long, of just some thin chrome moly tubing. You don't want too much weight to be put back inside there. And for this, I'm sure I could bronze weld it and it would be strong enough, particularly with the sleeves in. But I don't know, belt and braces sort of thing. What I'm going to do is TIG it so that I'm actually making a fusion weld and completely reattaching these two pieces as one continuous piece of metal. So that's the jig. Let's say what we'll do now is we're going to put it in the chop saw and use these as a guide. So we'll move this out of the way. Oh, one other thing is on the back here I've drilled 2 1/4-inch holes. That's so that when I put the sleeves in, I can just run some bronze into there and it'll hold the sleeves so that they don't move anyway, because we're not going to make huge sleeves. And the last thing you'd want is sort of vibration in the bike to move the sleeve, even if it was in tight, so that it gets away from where the joint is, and then there's no point in having the sleeve there if it isn't going past the joint on both sides. Spanning is the word I was looking for, but I'm getting old. So here we'll go. We'll put this over here, and seeing that some people like sparks, I'll zoom you in a little bit to see that. But there, I forgot a couple of things. Of course, you can't just bolt these on willy-nilly, so when you bolt these on, you need to find a datum point back here, like the end of the swinging arm, and measure down the same on both sides, so that your cuts are going to be parallel with this spindle and with the wheel spindle. So you bolt this one on first, make sure it's nice and parallel, and then you can bolt that one on and measure the gap you're going to cut. Another thing is the little holes I drilled in the back here. When we put the sleeves in, because we want them to be tight, there's a chance that when you've got them in one end they're fine, when you're trying to put them in the other end they'll move. So we'll put them in this end, we'll put our little bit of bronze in, and that'll hold them so that we can knock these on. Right, so now we come to the cutting. First of all, you put my goggles on. I stood this on a piece of wood with a little piece here because, as well as using the guide for the blade to go parallel to everything, we also want the actual swinging arm to be laid at right angles to our cut. So because of the bolts under here and things, I've had to just chalk it up slightly. So here goes. Everything seems to be good there. Hold it down and Needs to be just along a little bit to make sure that we could go all the way down. So there we go, nicely cut off there. Now we found we needed it to be a little bit more up to here. There we go. And there we have our pieces cut off. So the next stage will be to put our little sleeves in. We'll bolt one to the other and we're all ready to weld. We've put these two together, just holding at the moment in the vise. I'm putting these completely in line. As you can see here, as I mentioned, we're now shorter. So what we're going to do, this is all holding everything nicely. We'll slacken this off. And this is the one I slotted. Tapping it at this end where the wheel spindle will keep us quite right. Ourselves right. So that that's in a straight line. And when this is all tightened up, it will come together. So then we just tighten this back up. Take it off the vise. We'll put the sleeve pieces in, knock it all together, and then we can weld it. There we go. So here we have our two halves, all nicely cleaned up. The edges we're going to weld are being chamfered and the paint cleaned back off them. So now we'll put our sleeves in. So we can see them there. Now, as I say, we'll pop a little bit of bronze in each of those holes and that will hold them nicely in place for when we put this together. So, I won't bother putting the green shield on. Going to take that long. The sleeve hot while we start to do the outer, or the bronze won't stick. those together. And of course now, when I think about it, we can't actually slide that along until these are in, because as you'll see, oh, that's hot. They're going to line up there, not up here. So let me turn off for a second, and I'll just let that cool down so we can slacken that and put it together. With it set up in the vise, as I say, it struck me it was easier to do it in there than to bolt it together and then have to mess around trying to clamp it up while we welded it. So we just tack this together and then we'll take it out. One on each side and one on the top. So good. So there's a little bit more space. That should hold that. And the spindle still turns. So far so good. So again, we'll let everything cool down, take it out of there, then I can take it all the way around. Alright, I've welded these two all the way around, which I'll show you in a minute in close-up. But I wanted to just mention something that I've just found out. Now normally when I shorten the swinging arm, I shorten it actually here. As I say, I take 1 1/4 inches out, and it just so happens that if you move the wheel spindle mount here back to there, it's 1 1/4 inches. So what I have been doing is setting this up in the the drill stand here, setting it up so it's completely vertical, completely horizontal, and then using a hole saw to actually cut out a 1-inch hole through there and making up a new spindle holder, which would then be bronzed in. But as you know, this time we did it differently. Well, what I found doing it this time is that although this little jig worked, it didn't work 100% because I hadn't made it out of stiff enough material. This isn't exactly a right angle, it certainly doesn't hold the right angle, but also it tended to deform. So actually when I finished, I was very slightly out and I had to clamp all this down and make sure everything, the wheel spindle and the pivot spindle were parallel and the arms were straight and so on before I welded it up completely. So as I say, for those of you who may be thinking of doing this, bear that in mind. There are the two ways of doing it. If you do it this way, make sure those angles are really good solid stuff. Okay, we'll zoom in now and we'll talk about the next thing to do with the swinging arm. So here we have the swinging arm. I TIG welded all the way around and given it a nice proud bead so I can grind it, and when it's painted you won't even know it's been split. Now the next thing we're going to do is on this side we're going to put in a couple of mountings for the chain guard. And what we're actually going to do is drill through the arm and then put in these two pieces of 3/8 which are drilled to 1/4 into there, and then we can put bolts through to hold the chain guard on. If you're wondering what the strange noise is, we're actually having quite a large amount of rain at the moment. We are at present just coming up to Christmas, sorry, just coming up to New Year. We've just had Christmas and it looks as if it's going to be what's known as an open winter in upstate New York, because so far we don't have any snow. Now what I'm going to do here is use one of these clever little doodads to make sure I get myself, I don't know if you can actually read that, but we're going to get this horizontal in the two planes, that way, and then that way I know I'm going to be drilling exactly right. We're going to drill in 3 stages. We're going to use again one of the nice little centering drills from the lathe, because I've mentioned before the angle that these are cut at means that they don't wander at all. They're really good, particularly on curves. Then we'll use about a 3/16 drill as a pilot, and then the 3/8 to go through. The little bit of masking tape is just to mark on where I want them. It's not actually marked where I'm exactly going to drill, just how far along we need to go. So let's get this to 0. Alright, that's 0 that way. Reading 0 that way. Still 0 that way. Now tightening the vise has moved it a little. Still 0 there. That has definitely moved. This, as you can see, is not the most expensive vise in the world, and the jaws do tend to twist a little bit. I don't use it for any precision work, but it is fine for things like that. Now this thing has little arrows on, and you've got to remember what the little arrows mean. Zero. 0. So what we'll do is we'll Put it under where we want to beat the drill. Check that we're still reading 100. 0, 0 I should say. That's it. And we'll make our mark. See, I've got to jiggle this about to actually make sure I miss that. 0. Now, that out. Still good. Didn't sound so good, did it? Just catching. Actually, we're at the limit of its travel there, so let's come back up. There we go. That's one. This is one of those instances where, come on, you must have worked because I've already done you once. There we go. Zero. Zero. more. This drill doesn't actually have a huge range of speeds, which is why I'm not jumping up and down and changing the drill speed for these different sizes. But you can't have everything in life. That's all we married men know. There you go, there's a nice sexist joke for you, but then what the hell, I'm too old to worry. Good. Good. Again. Don't things like this always amuse you? How the hell did it change? Alright, there we go. Still good. Now then, come on, who moved that? Go with that. Right, now I will just sand off around these two holes and then we'll bronze our little pieces into there. Now pop these in here, a knocking stick, or as my dad used to call it, a Manchester screwdriver, and actually we didn't need it. It was just messing me about. Let's see what this one's like. That's the same there. Oh, now go straight, you little bugger. So they go through like thus. Now you notice they're not, I haven't tried to make them level that way, because when I make the chain guard there's actually going to be some mountings welded onto the alloy and they will match up to there perfectly. Well, that is the plan. So the next thing is to put a little bit of bronze on each of them, and then we'll bronze them in completely. Now we're going to come to the last piece that I'm going to do on the swinging arm at this point. You can see I've bronzed in these little cross tubes, so I'll have nice strong points to mount the chain guard, and probably I'll use one of these actually for the chain tensioner, which we'll talk about later, because I'm thinking of changing the type of chain tensioner I use. I've also ground out the welds. These will be sanded out and they'll disappear completely. So the last thing we're going to have to do is, swinging arm goes like that. We're going to use the TY250 set of wheels, so the brake is going to be on this side, so we need a mounting here for the brake torque arm. So we'll pop this in here. As I say, normally I would use the one that's part of the swinging arm, but again, good old sod's law, this was the one that was actually broken. So what I've made up is just a small, doesn't have to be huge, you know, this isn't some enormous disc brake that's going to haul us down from 200 miles an hour. So I've just made up a little mounting. Don't just make your mountings to go straight on like that. Always put some little feet on them, or at least a little wrap around. If any of you have read Tony Fall's great book on building frames, where he is building frames for people to ride at insane speeds, he points out that this is a much stronger joint than just to actually have the edge of the plate, no matter how thick the plate is, onto there. Just as with all the other joints we do, the more you can spread the contact area out, the better. But of course we don't want to go mad and put pounds and pounds of extra weight on, so just a couple of little feet. What I actually do to make it easy is I make it out of two pieces, put a little foot on each one, and then just run some weld round to hold them together. So this was 1/8 and 1/8 plate, so it's the equivalent of a 1/4 inch fitting, and as you can see I've cleaned all the paint off and everything. So we put this on. I did make it a very slight curve to go on there. Put that on the top, make sure things look level, which they do. Right, now, do you know what? I prefer it there we are, put on that on vertical, and let's see if we can stick this on before it falls off. go, that's got a grip of that. Now we'll heat up along the joint so this will start to flow. Too hot, which that was. See, even I get things wrong. What I've done with pliers, there they are. I did exactly what I said you shouldn't do there. I got it too hot. It's a bit of a Goldilocks job. If it's not hot enough, it doesn't flow out and stick. If you get it too hot, it's not good for the bronze. And again, it doesn't stick properly, nasty things happen. You get bad joints, so here we go. Back around to where we made a mess of it. Managed to get a little bit of dirt into that. Just like solder, bronze doesn't like dirt. Which is of course what the flux is for. Pop! There we go. So we'll let that cool down and then we'll stick it in the frame and see how things look there. Now it's cooled down, we can fit the swinging arm into the frame. Now this is one of those jobs which there's only one way to get it in. Sometimes it slides in and sometimes it gets stuck and then it will neither go in nor come out. Today we've been reasonably fortunate. There it goes through. Now, one other thing I built in the past that's been handy are these sort of imitation shocks. The 3 holes drilled at this end are for different lengths. So if you haven't got a jig, it'll allow you to put these in a fixed place because you can just, you make 2 of these of course. You hang it onto the length of suspension unit you want, which in our case is 14 inches. Like so. And there we have it. So as I say, you can make 2 of these and then you bolt them in here. Make sure you set them at the same angle. You can put a little cross piece over or some brace of some sort, and then you can just bolt in your top mountings and do your framework around it. Anyway, there we go. We have 2 things to put on the swinging arm before it's completely finished, but I'm not going to do those until I've got the wheels in. One is the prop stand. You can end up with a jig having so many mountings on it, it gets to be ridiculous. So what I like to do with the prop stand is I make the prop stand. When I've got the wheels in, I just lean the bike over, just fasten it with a tie down, and then I can get my prop stand exactly where I want it, just tack it on and then weld it or bronze it. The other thing we've got to put on is a chain tensioner. I have been using the Sammy Miller ones, which are really nice, well made as everything else they do is, but I'm thinking of using something different this time. So I'm also going to leave that until we've actually got the engine in and the wheel and the chain there, and I can see exactly where it's going to go. So there we are. For the sake of a couple of minor things which we'll cover later on, a couple of little holes to drill and stuff, our frame, swinging arm is ready to go. Next thing we're going to deal with is going to be the front forks. Well, what else would there be? There's only front forks. But that will be on the next one. I thank you very much. I noticed that there seems to be a little hardcore group of masochists who've watched all of these. I will mention that they might get a little erratic because it's winter coming up in upstate New York and I tend to hibernate. So I'll try and get it exactly the same every couple of weeks. Another phase in the build of this bike, and in between what I might do is slip in a few on some more bikes like the Sunbeam, the Ariel, that I hope you've looked at. Alright, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed your Christmas and you're going to enjoy your New Year, and we will talk to you in 2016.